and welcome back to Dreams, Passion and Your Hong Kong Story, where every time we bring before you amazing stories of inspirational people from Hong Kong. Today we have with us a very enterprising person, someone who runs a food tour company in Hong Kong and whose company has recently been ranked as #1 on TripAdvisor. Let's meet Virginia Chan from 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Fishbowls. Hello, Virginia, and welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Virginia was born and brought up in Canada to Hong Kong parents, and she grew up in Canada listening about numerous Hong Kong stories. She moved to Hong Kong in 2012 as a corporate professional, and just 3 years later, she launched her company 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Fishbowls. This is a food tour company which organizes walking tours and shows to the public several historical and cultural sites and stories of Hong Kong neighborhoods. Let's talk to Virginia and find out about her journey in Hong Kong. So, Virginia, tell us about your company first. What made you launch it? What does it do?
All right, so our company name is a bit strange, but it is called 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Fishbowls. It's supposed to be like the weather report, but it also is a reflection of our culture and kind of the objectives, which is we don't want to take ourselves too seriously, and so we're just there to have fun, but we want it to be informative. So our company is food specialized currently, and so we basically use food as a platform to get people to learn more about Hong Kong's cultures, traditions, and heritage, basically. So even from fishbowls, we can talk about the early settlers of Hong Kong and the clans and how like seafood is such a huge part of all culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So currently, obviously, for 2020, tourism is a little bit slow. So we have branched out to do other things that are, I hope, in line with kind of my objective, which is to show more about Hong Kong. And so we have started digitally, we have started a YouTube channel. So some of it is informative, like Dragon Boat Festival, but other times it's like me at $100 durian buffet, just eating durian for the sake of eating durian, because I love durian. Yeah, and then also we've been doing online experiences, so teaching people how to make egg tarts, or just having like a virtual games night on Hong Kong culture. And then another thing that I've been doing in Hong Kong actually is I teach mahjong. So I do private lessons on teaching people for players.
Oh my God, I would love to learn that from you.
So yeah, so we've been doing those things and we've been keeping busy that way.
So you do all that under the umbrella of 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Fishbowls?
Correct. Yeah.
How did it come out with this name? Such a unique name.
Yeah, so when I first moved to Hong Kong, I was actually in HR and I was in a corporate and I was working for an American bank. And so I thought that perhaps I wanted to show my friends what I was doing. So initially I had a blog that was like called 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Wontons or something. So when I wanted to do a food tour company, or a tour company actually, it started with a walking tour company, I was just like, oh, well, what's a really fun name that can like bring us apart, show that we're unique and we're fun and we're just not like a normal tour. I'm like, hey, why don't we do 𝐬𝐫 with a Chance of Fishbowls? Because I felt like fishbowls was more
the Hong Kong
iconic,
local Hong Kong food.
Exactly, than wontons. So that became that, and I just, as an afterthought, I thought, oh, if I ever went back to Vancouver and wanted to start a blog, I could do like rainy with a chance of maple syrup or something. Haven't gone that far yet, but you know, we're sticking with Hong Kong and
So where did you grow up in Canada? Tell us about your early childhood days and what motivated you towards your current journey?
Yeah, so I was actually born and raised in Vancouver, BC. Did all my education there and, you know, basically grew up in Vancouver, BC. My parents are actually from Hong Kong, so they moved obviously way before I was born. And my parents, obviously, they didn't go through the education system in Vancouver, so they spoke to each other in Cantonese. I'm an only child with a dog, so they were the only ones I spoke to around the house, so that's how I managed to keep my Cantonese, which is speaking to my parents, but also at the same time, my parents were very frugal, so we didn't have cable. So I didn't have like the MTV or the YTV. I'm quite old, so if you know what YTV is, I don't know if it's still around, but it was like the kids channel. And so we didn't have any of those things. The only thing I could remember was my grandma had the Chinese channel, like the TVB equivalent in Vancouver. So she would like VHS and record like the dramas for us, and that was my entertainment. I would watch TVB dramas, and so I was always fascinated, like when we went to visit Hong Kong, and be like, I want to do the things that I've seen in these shows, and then my parents would tell me stories about Hong Kong.
What made you move to Hong Kong? And after you moved to Hong Kong, what excited you towards entrepreneurship? And why specifically in Hong Kong?
Wow, this is going to be a very long story that I'll try to keep very short. But the initial reason why I wanted to move to Hong Kong was because I was in HR, and in Vancouver, it's not really kind of big cities. So in order for you to have a specific HR function, you need to have a really big office and a big corporation. So I wanted to go somewhere, I was really young. I was like, I wanted to go somewhere really metropolitan. And so initially I wanted to go to New York, but obviously as a Canadian, it's really hard to get sponsorship over there. And so the next easiest thing was just to come to Hong Kong because I didn't have to have a work visa because of my parents. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's move. And then my parents were like, okay. They thought it was one of those things, I'll be back in like 1 or 2 years. And so they were like, okay, see ya. And so I moved here and actually started working in the HR for a couple of years, about 3 to 4 years before it was comp season. So if you're in HR, that means really, really busy work, long hours. And I remember being in a taxi, and I remember looking at the time, and it was like 4:32 a.m. And I was thinking, well, I need to be back in the office at 7:30. So do I sleep, or do I shower, or do I wash my hair? And at that time, I was like, well, I don't know. HR has been my job or my career all this time. I don't know if it's the right one for me because I've never tried anything else. And I'm like, and I'm gonna turn 30 and I'm still single. Like, where is my life headed? And so I just decided that I wanted to try something different, and then to discover if I wanted to be in HR or if I wanted something more creative. And that's when I quit. After the cycle ended, I quit, and then my parents got really concerned. So they kept FaceTiming me. And I didn't know what to tell them. But then I had just come back from Eastern Europe, and free walking tours were all the rage. Okay. And I just told them, I'm going to start a free walking tour in Hong Kong because I didn't see any. And I started that. They're like, okay, whew, at least she's going to stay in one spot. We know where she is. And then I quickly realized I didn't do enough research because free walking tours is really volume-based. Right. You want to take around like 40, 50 people around, and if they like you at the end of the tour, they'll tip you 5 to 10 euros or dollars, and so it's based on volume. But in Hong Kong, I found that it was really hard to start off because it was a very novel idea, it was a very new idea, and then so people thought it was a scam. But another thing was a lot of our tourists here are not English speaking, so I didn't think it was the right model, and then I was like, what else can I do that's closer, near, and dearer to my heart? And I'm like, food. Completely, right? Because it's like Sunday, you go to dim sum with your parents, like everything happens around food, right? So I was like, we can do food. And at that time in Hong Kong, most of the tour guides were not Cantonese speaking, they were only English speaking. And I was like, oh, that's perfect, because I can do the bridge, right? I can bridge the East and the West because I can speak both languages, so I can talk to the guests, understand their preferences because I was born in Vancouver, but at the same time, I can go and talk to the locals and the vendors, and I can do that bridge. And that's how we started as a food tour company, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So the different tours that we do is broken into, I would say, 2 segments. So one is a group tour, one is a private tour. A group tour means you are maybe a couple or just one person, and you're looking to join an existing tour based on a schedule, and then you go with a bunch of other people. So it's great if you want to meet friends. A private tour is basically a tour that you want to do with your near and dearest, and they're bespoke, they're tailored, and they're customized just to your group, so you can do whatever you want for them. So you can turn any group tour that you want into a private tour. So let's talk about the group tours. So like I said, we use food as a platform for you to learn more about the different facets and the issues about Hong Kong. So for example, we like to go to areas, they're usually walking tours. We like to go to areas that are a little bit less known. For example, our signature is the Wong Poa tour, and the reason why is because I live there. I love Wong Poa. And basically, we do a deconstruction of the main 5 basic flavors of Cantonese cuisine, which is Tim Shun Fu La Ham. So for example, it's like the bitter, the spicy, the sour, and the sweet, and the salty, right? So for example, each tasting stop will be based on one flavor. And so we'll go to a bitter stand, and so we'll have some herbal cooling tea, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Chinese medicinal philosophy, the herbal tea, why we think cold water is the devil, things like that, so you understand a little bit more about, you know, the local mentality. We kind of put in local attractions, stories, and just like the food all in between, all in big one encompassing tour, and that's what we do. Similarly, we go to areas like Kowloon City because there's such history at Kowloon City and such good food, and that is basically
Thai, not a good Thai food.
Yeah, so basically our story for that, because I love a good gimmick, as you might already know, is that with Kowloon City, it's basically a story of all the ethnic communities we have in Hong Kong. So we might go to the Thai food place, and then I'll tell you why there's like Thai community in Hong Kong, or why Kowloon City is called the little Thailand of Hong Kong. We might go to the 𝐤𝐴 place and tell you why a lot of 𝐤𝐴 men are married to Thai women, etc., etc.
Interesting.
So,
How fun.
And then also in between all the eating, we'll be walking. So people really see that true local glimpse of local life. So for example, we might go into a private housing estate, and then they'll look at that. And then we might go into a public housing estate, and they'll look at that. And one thing great about Hong Kong public housing is that it's not like what some people think. Some people I find that have a really negative perspective. Then we'll tell them a little bit stories about the local vendors we're eating from, saying like, oh, this siu mai fish dumpling is actually made this morning. They're one of the few vendors in Hong Kong that are still making it from scratch. Well, until last year where we swapped over to like mahjong and like egg tart classes online, yeah.
You are so entrepreneurial. You spotted just the right opportunity in the market at the right time. And then I love your nimbleness, the whole nimble attitude that in this COVID time, how swiftly you change your business model to digital and also adopting many new strategies. That's great. So now tell us, it's, you know, you came to this market as pretty much an expat. I mean, even though you could speak Cantonese, but you know, having grown up in Canada, you spotted an opportunity in Hong Kong. You decided to venture out, and of course, your company has been rated one of the top food tour companies in Hong Kong and on TripAdvisor. So now tell me, what are the challenges you faced when you embarked on this journey?
Oh, tons. I think is because I really wanted to be unique. I don't want to conform. I want to stand out. So even with the name Humid with a Chance of Fishbowls, can you imagine if you type in food tours, like none of there's no good words in it. It's not a very good SEO. It's not like Hong Kong Food Tours, Hong Kong Food Tour Company, right?
It's
like,
a bit long.
It's a bit long, right? Another thing is we do food tours around areas that are very not known to tourists, right? Because we want it to be very like authentic. So for example, our signature is in Whampoa, and most people might not have heard of where Whampoa is, right? So it was really hard to get off because one, we didn't have reviews, and most people now look towards reviews, and then they have never heard of this area before. So it was really hard to get off the bat. But obviously once you get the reviews coming in, then people don't care where the tour is, they just care about kind of like other people have said it's great, so now it gets a little bit easier. Right. But I think one of the main challenges that I always face is always about scalability, I would say. It's always a matter of, you know, there's only one of me or like a couple of my tour guides, but we want to be able to bring as many people as we can onto our tours and to showcase Hong Kong. So how do we do that, right? Like how do we do that at all different times and make that work? I think scalability is one thing that I get faced with a lot.
Okay. And now tell us about the achievements of your company that you're really proud of.
So I'll tell you about the one that makes me most proud, but obviously I think to build credibility, because our brand is so fun and kind of like wacky and quirky, then obviously on our website we always list that, you know, we've been listed in Time Out, Lonely Planet, we were just featured on Netflix a couple months ago, and also we were on SCMP.
How fun.
Yeah, SCMP and also Apple Daily. Those are kind of like the accolades that we talk about. But besides that, for me, honestly, it's about meeting these people and showing them about my heritage. So I hear stories with my mom and dad talking about it, about them living in Hong Kong and the things they do, and that's what I really want to show people. So one vivid tour really, you know, is very vivid in my mind. One tour was very vivid in my mind is that we had a family, and so it was a hotel pickup, and the kids were really grumpy. I think they were like 5 to 10. They were very grumpy. They didn't really they were quite cold to me at first, but at the end of the tour, they didn't want it to end. They were really happy, and one of them was my assistant carrying my bags and stuff, and they just didn't want the tour to end, and I felt like I had achieved something. I had been like a Hong Kong ambassador. You know, it's like my one-time shot or one-time opportunity to make sure that they like Hong Kong, they have a good impression of Hong Kong, and I felt like I really did that.
How wonderful. That shows your true passion, and I love that. You know, you grew up in Canada, you were born in Canada, and now Hong Kong is your home currently. Tell us how Hong Kong has been for your personal journey.
I think in terms of Hong Kong being on my personal journey, it has really matured me and made me more independent. So I would say I lived quite a sheltered life in Vancouver, but coming into Hong Kong and having to do everything yourself and coming out to do your own business, a lot of times you learn that sometimes you have to say no. You get so many different opportunities that you're faced with. Some of them pan out, some of them don't. You have to learn to be independent and kind of trust yourself, and don't let anybody belittle you or undermine your success, because you are your own cheerleader. If you can't talk about your own brand and be positive about it, no one else will be able to do that for you. And so one of the things that I am really passionate about right now is women empowerment, because I feel like I didn't really have a lot of women entrepreneurs to look like. I didn't really know who to turn towards and to find inspiration that way. And so that's why I've joined like the Women's Foundation Mentoring Program, and I'm on the 𝐷x volunteering committee. And so women empowerment is really important to me these days, because I want to give back to the community and show other girls and ladies that they can do it too.
Awesome. So what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
You know, I have no idea. A lot of people ask me this now, obviously, as I'm in tourism, and I just tell them that my objective when I started the tours was so I can show more people about my like old Hong Kong, like the stories of my grandma and grandpa and my mom and dad. And I still want to do that, but we've moved some things digitally, so on YouTube, etc. I want to keep on that same objective, but I don't know exactly on what platform or how. Will we still be doing it in person? Will we be doing it virtually? I think that's still up in the air, but I'm still very passionate about what I'm doing right now, but hopefully we can find something that, you know, makes it financial sense, and then I'm able to do what I love and then combine them both together. Yeah, that's what I hope to do.
Okay. All right, so are you ready for a rapid fire question round?
Yes, is that the right answer?
Yes, that's getting to know Virginia's Hong Kong story in a bit more fun way. All right, question number 1.
Okay.
Your most favorite food tour?
The signature Wong Po tour. I mean, they're all my babies because I create them, but I think I really like the Wong Po one because that's where I live. I just love Wong Po. People don't really think much about Wong Po, but I just love it. It's very near and dear to my heart.
Okay. Your best discovery while on one of the walking tours in Hong Kong?
I think it's all the local stories. So if you don't ever talk to the vendors, you might not know their local stories. One of them was just actually on the Wong Po tour. I never realized that they made fish dumplings from scratch, but this was one of the few vendors left in Hong Kong that still made it from scratch. And that's why, even though they only open at 1 p.m., they've been up at 6 a.m. ever since that morning, making those little dumplings from scratch.
So you mean to say most dumplings in Hong Kong are not made from scratch?
They're actually factory made, produced, and then they just steam them.
Really? I didn't know that. That's interesting to know. Your favorite restaurant in Hong Kong, casual and formal?
So if it's a casual one where it's like more like local, then I really like to bring people out to a Thai Pai Tong, which is like the outdoor seating, like really al fresco outdoor seating areas in Sam Shui Po. If you're talking about a bit like more formal dining, if they are more catered toward like, I guess, Western or expat taste, I would recommend something like a Mott 32. Okay. I mean, any hotel restaurants are okay, but if I want something that's like truly kind of more traditional, I would recommend something like a Choi Hung Chun, like Choi Hung Village. I think they do really decent food there, and they've got a really good char-siu there.
Where is Choi Hung Village?
There's several locations. There's one in Central, and I think there's one in TSD.
Choi Hung Village. And what do they serve?
They serve very similar food to like a local banquet Cantonese, so they'll have dim sum, and then at night they'll have like the big dishes for you to share, etc., etc. It's like a local banquet Chinese restaurant, but I think they do it well at a fair price point. Yeah.
And your favorite thing to do in Hong Kong with friends and family?
Obviously eat, right? So obviously on our business Instagram, I showcase the local foods, but with my other friends, because they're all quite local, they really like obviously the brunch and the new restaurant. So we try everything in between, yeah.
Okay. Last time, you did something for the first time in Hong Kong.
I did something for the first time in Hong Kong. Actually, it was during this time, I did a lot of explorations. So for example, when I lead tours, they're usually around set areas, but for this time we went over to, I don't remember the English name of it, but it's the place where we make salt. Okay. So it's like the salt island, yeah, like teen. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like where we make local salt. And so I thought that was quite cool. So I've been exploring a lot of different islands. Some place that I've gone before, but I haven't been back for a really long time, was also 𝐵𝑒𝑛𝑔𝑒𝑜, because my mentor is also from 𝐵𝑒𝑛𝑔𝑒𝑜 as well. So I explored it a little bit.
3 words that describes your Hong Kong life.
Whew, that's a hard one. I think fast-paced, or fast-paced,
Okay.
exciting, vibrant.
What are you most proud of as a Hong Konger?
I think I'm most proud of that I love Hong Kong, and I want to spread positivity, and I want to spread the old Hong Kong stories that my mom and dad have told me about, and that's something I feel like I can contribute to Hong Kong, and that's what I'm most proud of.
And what would you tell all the people who want to visit you in Hong Kong? Why should they visit Hong Kong?
Hong Kong's awesome. Come see it for yourself, and you should try fish bowls as well, because it might be humid with a chance of fish bowls.
Well, thank you so much, Virginia, for coming to our show, and we wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Stay tuned for your next episode on Dreams, Passion and Your Hong Kong Story, where we bring you yet another fascinating story from this wonderful place, Hong Kong.